Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our SAUG Solutions series. In this series, we ask our consultant members to showcase their solutions and show how they can assist with optimizing your SAP systems and projects. Thanks to all members who have joined, and I hope everyone is well. Thanks to IQX Business Solutions for their ongoing support of SAUG and for making this session possible. Today, we are looking at transforming your capital planning and budgeting processes. Now, before we start, just a few details. This session is being recorded. The recording and a copy of the presentation will be made available on the SAUG website shortly, and we'll notify everyone when it's ready. Everyone is on mute, but you can ask questions at any time by using the question function that's on the right of your screen. If you have time, we have time, we'll get to the questions at the end. There'll also be contact details on the slides, so if you'd like to ask any questions in the future, you can email the presenter directly, or you can even contact us. We also welcome your feedback, so if today's topic makes you think of other topic areas that you'd like to see, please let us know also in the questions section. And just to let you know, we are going to run 4 polls just to get a bit of feedback from you about today's topic. So just look out for those. There'll be 2 fairly soon at the start, and also 2 later on, but we'll announce those. So make sure you join into those. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenter, someone who's very familiar to our SAUG members. It's Richard Frickberg, who's the CEO of IQX Business Solutions. Thanks, Richard.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you everyone for your time this morning. So just to introduce the topic of what capital budgeting is all about, and for capital budgeting, it's probably the most important decision we all make in our businesses. It's about where to invest our available resources, whether that's time or money, into the projects that are going to matter most. And really that means the projects that are going to advance our organization towards its desired strategic outcomes and get there sooner at lowest cost and least risk. So that's what capital budgeting is about. And the typical capital budgeting process that many organizations go through starts with identification of opportunities. And these are problems in the business or market opportunities to address with new products or apply new technologies. So any good ideas that we have out there, needs and wants, those lists normally get submitted, from various areas, quite often in a spreadsheet, and then it's somebody's job to collate all that demand and then figure out what we're practically going to be able to accommodate in next year's planning. So that's a first step of portfolio selection. Those initiatives that look like they're the most valuable and viable, get a tick, they make it above the cut, and someone's tasked with going and preparing a more detailed business case in respect of those typically single line item project demand. The business cases are more sophisticated, and they typically include some financial modeling. And again, that's often done on a spreadsheet. Those business cases then get submitted through a workflow approval cycle. Many organizations will do that in workflow tools like SharePoint, previously Lotus Notes, often email, I guess prior to COVID, even on pieces of paper, but those projects then get finally approved. And not all CapEx requests, of course, were necessarily budgeted, and it's the reconciliation of the projects that were in the budget versus those that weren't in the budget that happens in the CapEx request and approval cycle, and involves, senior executive managers in the approval. Once a project is approved, when a project normally gets created in SAP, whether that's represented as an internal order or actually as a WBS element, we start incurring costs, and the responsible project managers are required to forecast how we're tracking. Are we going to be in line with that approved budget or not? And the analysis, of that capital portfolio is important to be able to identify projects that may need to be stopped, or projects that are being delayed so that other candidate projects can take their place and substitute. So I was at a finance conference, actually 2 finance conferences in the last 2 weeks, and pretty much every CFO I spoke to, and probably well over 100 over the 2 conferences. Was my observation that every single one of them, and most of them large SAP customers, still uses spreadsheets extensively in this process. So the real question, the first question for our panelists today is that true in your organization? Where in that cycle from ideas management, and Michael, if you can launch the survey, that'd be great. Where in your business do you see the reliance on spreadsheets? Is it in that upfront, submission of your wish list of projects for 2025 as part of that capital budgeting round? Is it, when the capital committee get together and put all those projects together and try sort and prioritize and draw a line somewhere? So is it in that selection and prioritization of those projects? Is it in the development of the business case and the financial modeling to try and determine the payback or the net present value calculations on your projects? Is it in the actual submission form that gets routed through your workflow system for approval? Is it in the capital forecasting? Do your project managers have to submit an updated expenditure forecast every month? And do your CapEx controllers rely on spreadsheets to then consolidate actual forecast, plan and budget information to produce meaningful executive analytics? I'm hoping that a few of you rely on spreadsheets, but can you share the results, Michael?
Yeah, we'll just thanks, Richard. We'll just keeping it open for a little bit more, just till we get enough people. There's still quite a few people that are voting, so
Okay.
so just to
hopefully everyone can see the poll.
Yeah,
are able to access those questions.
I can see the results, and we'll keep it probably for another 10 seconds, and then I'll close it and see if we can show the results.
So I would go further to say that anyone who presented a complete replacement of spreadsheets is probably deceiving themselves. I don't think we'll ever remove spreadsheets from the capital planning and budgeting cycle. I guess the important point is not to rely on the spreadsheets as the ultimate destination or source of truth for the information, but how can we use spreadsheets as an efficient planning tool, but then as quickly as possible get that data into a core system for control purposes.
Richard, can you see the results there?
No, maybe you can call them out.
Can you see? No, share. Okay. Well, what's happened? What's clearly stuck out? First of all, CapEx forecasting analysis is 86%, way out front. Then business case ROI calculations at 64%. Then capital budgeting 50%. Then ideas and project wish list at 43%, and then CapEx request form at 36%. So CapEx forecasting analysis way out front.
Okay, that's excellent. All right, thank you. Now we'll follow that, Michael, if you don't mind, with the very next survey, just because we really want to keep this interactive. And the next question is, why do we think this reliance in those areas might be a problem? So when we speak with our customers, one of their concerns around reliance on spreadsheets is the quality of the data that's collected. It's very difficult, to control the completeness and accuracy and reliability of some of those formulas and the data that's input into a spreadsheet. It's kind of the double-edged sword of spreadsheets. They are extremely flexible, and they're also very difficult to control. So ensuring the accuracy and consistency of data has been a concern for many of our customers. The other key point is the security and accessibility of the information in spreadsheets. As you know, it's difficult to secure individual rows of a spreadsheet. So you can't have one big spreadsheet. So what you tend to have is either many spreadsheets with access limited accordingly, or else you give somebody the sole access to that spreadsheet, and anyone else who wants to know whether a project was in budget or not, or how much was in budget, they need to go ask that gatekeeper of the spreadsheet. So
Great.
an inherent challenge is the security and accessibility of the spreadsheet itself. The third issue people talk about is the effectiveness of the spreadsheet models. As we know, spreadsheets are pretty much two-dimensional. You have rows and you have columns. And the concern is that that might be too naive for certain large, sophisticated projects and too complex for others. And getting that balance just right when you're stuck into kind of a static framework of columns and rows might mean that you don't get, the detail where you need it, or you have excess complexity where you don't. And therefore, it's not really an effective tool for really comparing simple replacement type projects with major transformations.
Great.
The third problem with spreadsheet, sorry, is there a problem? I just want to talk through the issues, Michael, while we capture. The third issue is, getting the data out of spreadsheets and into SAP. As soon as we see spreadsheets, we concern ourselves with how does that information get in there, and how's it going to get out, into our systems of record like SAP or into our analytical tools. And I guess the really emergent concern with having this critical business data locked away into multiple spreadsheets is in the area of AI. How are we ever going to learn? How are we ever going to be able to consolidate the good knowledge and experience that was built into those financial models so that we can help future project managers in forecasting their CapEx spend more accurately based on patterns of cost development that we've seen in the past. Without good access to the planning information and the basis of those estimates, and the ability to then compare that with actual data and commitments, we lose out on a big opportunity to improve through machine learning and through the application of tools like generative AI in that business case preparation to really digitally transform the capital budgeting process. So across those areas, what are we seeing as, or what do you think, I guess personally, are some of the major challenges with the reliance on spreadsheets in this critical business process? You want to share the results of that?
Yes. Yes, Richard. Yeah, I was going to say back then that everyone voted, which was great. So thanks everyone. And the results are interesting because for most of the time,
data I don't know if you're
quality.
Sharing, Michael.
Let me see if I was trying to. Can everyone see that or?
Okay. Yes, now I can see it.
Yeah. So basically. Productivity came out in front, so 75% said productivity, and followed closely by data quality and security and accessibility. Both of those got 70%, so they're obviously key concerns. Effectiveness, 50%, and then AI and analytics capabilities, so 35%. So definitely productivity, that's an interesting one, followed by data quality and security and accessibility.
Excellent. All right, well, thanks everyone for sharing that. Back to the slide. So I think the it comes down to those three things. It's really the scope of the data that we can capture in a spreadsheet as a constraint, the quality of the information as we've identified, and that data access and security as the key concern. So if those are the problems, what would an ideal, I guess, solution look like to eliminate the dependency on spreadsheets in this critical process? And I guess the key ones are a single source of truth. Yeah, as SAP people, we've been running this forever, and I guess the critical challenge for us as SAP people is that there isn't really an effective SAP module to capture some of this information in the core product. And the next point is it's got to be easy to use. Not everyone involved in the CapEx process, is IT literate. They're not all accountants. So one of the biggest challenges we see our customers have is really making the capital planning process as simple and as easy for everyone. And it's got to be agile and flexible. The capital projects we're planning for 2025 and the ones we actually do in 2025 are often not identical, and that's natural because the world changes and we need to be able to substitute and reprioritize as necessary. It's not any good having information if it's too late to do anything about it. Once the project's done and we're over schedule and over budget, it's too late. So what we need is a analytics platform that gives us timely, actionable insights. And as this is critical, commercially sensitive information, we do need to ensure the security of that data and the engagement of the right individuals in the approval and prioritization decisions, transparently. And increasingly important is the strategic alignment of initiatives. And I think what's got harder recently is organizations don't just have one strategy to make as much money as possible. They also have strategic commitments around the environment and towards ESG outcomes. So being able to understand the driver, of a particular initiative, if it's not financial, if it is greenhouse gas emissions, how do we compare that to a safety initiative or a DEI initiative, as well as a replacement or growth initiative. So capturing and aligning projects with strategy is a demand that maybe our legacy spreadsheets didn't really address. So we're talking today about a solution that's on the SAP store. It's called Stratex Online. Please have a look there. And it's part of SAP strategy. If it's not in the core, SAP is strongly encouraging the ecosystem to develop SaaS solutions around the core that are deeply integrated with SAP that can extend your business process to those end users in a user-friendly, cost-effective manner to ensure a seamless digitalization of the process that encompasses those core activities of identifying projects, evaluating, selecting, and allocating funding accordingly. So just quickly, an overview of what Stratex does is it is a idea management or demand management framework. So as opposed to driving this process through ServiceNow or SharePoint or email, it's one environment where each or anyone in the organization can identify an opportunity to improve something or repair something or replace something. Let's get it into the mix and not lose it. So let's not rely on spreadsheets for that. When it comes to that more sophisticated evaluation of those initiatives, and it's a multidimensional evaluation, touches on things like your strategic alignment, as I mentioned, those financial metrics or non-financial metrics, as the case may be. And typically, as a project gets more closer to implementation, we go from some qualitative assessments to some more hardcore financial and other metrics. Risk assessments is important, and the urgency. Risk, I guess, is in twofold, is in two aspects. The risk of implementation is one we always consider, as well as the risk of not doing it, because that's often the first thing executives will say, well, if we don't replace this equipment this year, what might the impact be? So we need to balance risk, benefit, and strategic alignment to come up with some overall score. An online system may do better than that, than Excel. Integrated workflow through the approval cycle, and then in that same tool, being able to capture the forecasts and return the actuals, and really be able to manage the progression of that portfolio, all the way from an idea through to a successful project outcome, tracking at each critical stage, and being able to take action as required. So that's what Stratex is all about. It's that front-end loading all the way through to creating the project in SAP. And that's what I'm going to briefly demonstrate. So we have an understanding of how that might work. So I'm going to start off in Stratex. I'm just going to start from the business case stage and run through into the financial analysis piece of that. And really my goal is to show you how we can transform this critical process without any reliance on spreadsheets. So we'll do the project summary in the business case in Stratex, and then I'll show you how we flow that into SAP via Fiori interface and how we ultimately create the projects and plans in the SAP backend. All right, so that was the easy bit because it worked on slides. So this is the Stratex environment. Michael, can you see my screen? Yeah, I think that's coming through.
I can,
okay.
yes, I think I can.
All right, so this is Stratex. It's a SaaS solution, activated on demand, ready to run, no infrastructure, but tied in with your single sign-on and fully integrated to SAP. But this is kind of the experience. So I'll start off with an initiative. I know that one's, sorry, this one here. This is a new business case. So this has already gone through the idea, management, and proposal. I'm not going to step through some of this. We don't really have time to cover the entire cycle. But effectively, every initiative will go or can go through multiple stages of evaluation. We could just start at the business case if it's an urgent item, but for demonstration purposes, I've started this one as an idea. It went through the proposal stage. It was accepted into the budget for 2025. And now me as the person responsible is going to complete the business case. Just in the high level here, we can see that the driver of this particular initiative is for growth. It's a capital project. It's in Palo Alto because I'm targeting a S4HANA demo system. So an important part about any business case submission, of course, is the qualitative information, the title, descriptions, justifications, and solution descriptions. What are the outcomes you desire? Some basic categorizations. We're able to step through some of the responsibility areas. So who the people are responsible. These are all derived in the solution based on the benefiting area, and you can have different benefiting areas from sponsoring areas. So for example, if IT project is funded by IT and not by the business unit, their sponsoring area might be IT, but the benefiting area might be manufacturing plant somewhere. For every initiative, we try and assess the urgency, the impact of not undertaking the initiative. What's the imperative? One of the key benefits of, I guess, a digital solution like this, as opposed to a spreadsheet. In a spreadsheet, you tend to have a single line for every project. You're only thinking about, your first choice option. And it's difficult to break it down and really think about alternative options for delivering the desired outcome. So, I might have on my wish list a new Tesla, but if I really think about it, if I understand the problem, I need to get to work, and I have, various options available to me. I could take a Tesla, I could, take a motorbike or a bicycle or a train, right? So most initiatives provide options for implementation. In this case, I'm using an simple example of a house. Now, when I look at that more detail of one of those options, I can describe the option itself. And now at the business case stage, this is where, based on my scoring model built into Stratex, we've decided that these are the key metrics that we need to compare this initiative to others, and that the execs will want to see before they sign off on the allocation of time and money, right? So how long will it take us for this investment to pay back? What is that internal rate of return? And do we have a solid net present value outcome? So this is an area where spreadsheets are typically heavily involved, is in building the business case model. Within Stratex, we approach the problem, within the tool itself. So you can have multiple templates for various repeatable project types, or you can just build your own on the fly. I'll start off with a template just to illustrate some key concepts. One of the key concepts is that you can build in a number of input parameters into your model. So in the simplest case, all somebody has to come in here and say, right, I've done many of these before. The key driver is the cost of the land, and all I need to do is update that, and all my net present value, internal rate of return, payback periods, etc., are automatically calculated. The way the tool is doing that is it's passing those parameters through to our Gantt chart, which is the detail of the investment breakup. So, for example, a house might consist of a land and buildings. The buildings might consist of walls and a roof. The walls might consist of foundations and bricklaying. So when we build up our estimates in Stratex, we're able to capture these discrete activities that make up the cost of the project. We can identify quantities and values and supplier dependencies and internal resource dependencies, but we build up the activities with a key consideration of timing. How long do things take, and what is the dependencies between major activities in the construction of a house? Because it's this idea of duration. If it's not considered at the beginning, we always get too over optimistic in terms of when some of our critical capital projects are going to be delivered. We always think it's going to go faster than it does. In my experience, most capital projects, the biggest concern is schedule delays and then budget overruns. But schedule delays are critically important, and if you don't facilitate that concept of timing interdependency early on in your planning life cycle, you're likely to disappoint your stakeholders in terms of the timing of when the benefits of these initiatives are going to start to appear. When are we going to get that additional revenue from this project? When are we going to get those additional savings? And it's only once we start being realistic about the scheduling of the inputs and what that will mean for the impact to our bottom line that we can start to more realistic projections. So the Gantt chart in our financial analysis breaks down the costs. It also identifies our benefits. These values can also come through obviously as parameters. So it can be parameter driven, the entire model, or the users can come in here and just directly add savings components and schedule them. If there's a phase one and we can start getting benefits as soon as we've got the land, we can have that dependency starting before the total benefit. So I've updated the cost of that financial analysis. So these key financial metrics will then get copied back into my business case submission. They appear here in a summary. I didn't really show, but each of these metrics, you can build your own scoring models and say, okay, how are you going to measure risk? Risk might be a combination of a technology, contractual scope, etc., attributes of the project, and your strategic alignment is based on your area. And if you haven't got specific strategies for your, IT or manufacturing or sales and marketing area, then it kind of works up the chain and it finds the next higher level of strategic goals, and it tries to align each project to the priority, strategic goals for the next budget year. But the net effect of doing the scoring and evaluation is that the executives will be presented with, an investment cost, a urgency, an overall score, which is a weighted combination of the relative benefit of this project based on these metrics, our implementation risk, and our strategic alignment score. Gives approving executives confidence in the decisions they're making, knowing that however we calculated that NPV or that payback, that's been done entirely consistently across all business cases, and people are using the same tax rates, exchange rates, discount rates, dependency estimates. I'll just quickly go through the approval here. So I've just made myself the approver, but as you'll see, we're toggling through various approval stages. If I actually click on this participants list, I can see who the approvals are going to be of this particular project based on its values and categorizations. So an IT project might go through the IT manager, for example. If it's got foreign currencies, it might go through Treasury. If it's for $1 million, it might go to the CEO. That's why I made it a small value, so we didn't have to go through too many levels of approval. But the important point is we're combining the estimate, the business case, and the approval workflow all in one integrated environment. Yeah. For many organizations where there's a dependency on spreadsheets, the plans are on one spreadsheet, the business case is in another spreadsheet, the CapEx forms in a third spreadsheet, the workflows in another tool, etc. So the whole idea here is we've got a single environment for the development of this initiative, from the first brainwave through the planning and budgeting, and now the business case with the workflow, until the point where this has been approved, and now we'll actually want to create the project in SAP. So I thought I would demonstrate that because we're SAP people. We want to see how we integrate, and we have two main ways of integrating. One is directly. So through CPI, we can call the BAPIs and create the project. We prefer to go through our Fiori layer for a few different reasons. One is change management, right? If somebody currently takes those Excel spreadsheets and creates the projects and then sends an email back to the originator and say, well, here's your project code, it's useful for them just to see what's happening, how their contribution in their process is becoming a value add, rather than them have to rekey information from a spreadsheet into SAP. That information from Stratex is pre-populating a project creation app. If there's some unique customization that you have in place, right, around maybe some user fields or attributes that for some reason you don't want to capture in Stratex, but you just want to be able to complement, this gives you an opportunity to supplement the data set that's passed from Stratex in kind of an SAP-centric environment. And also the integration that happens from here into your SAP system can be tailored to your specific configuration, because you may use internal orders, or you may use WBS elements, you may use investment management, or you may not. So you may set up your projects with a specific numeric convention. But basically that information that I just entered in Stratex all flows through here. We can see the CapEx splits and OpEx splits. We can see the breakdown of this project into the various components of the house. And if I'm happy with all of that, maybe as a technical person responsible, I can approve that. Again, the benefit of going through a little workflow here is if there is any error in the creation of the transactions in SAP, that can be handled by an SAP-centric person who's able to make sure that if there's a lock on a record, it's released, or if there's missing data, can be supplemented, etc. So just additional control in the flow of the Stratex information into SAP. Just to quickly round that off, I'll just log into SAP and show you what's happened. But we mentioned productivity as a pain point for using Excel, and I guess this is what I'm demonstrating here is without touching spreadsheets yet. We're able to submit the business case, review the data, and then in this case I'm using project systems. Now this thing should have been refreshed. Oh no, that's not one. Sorry, it's the wrong one. This one is out of to approve. It should be action by me. Okay, so it's now come through to action by me. It's created a project code. If I go into SAP, familiar with SAP. Yeah, so I've done my project code setup in SAP with my building, with my walls and roof, etc. So we've created the project code in SAP, and if we wanted to go see our planning information, I put it into specific planning version. Okay, so let's just type it in, C00. we've got our plan set up in SAP. So that means we can do the reporting on the solution directly out of SAP as we are today. But because we've also created a link, I'll just show you, we should have a column here called project ID. We've also brought back the project ID into Stratex, so we can then bring back the actuals and commitments from SAP directly into Stratex, and we can do some portfolio monitoring within Stratex as well as in SAP, depending on the use case. So from a portfolio management point of view, it's nice to know how this project is developing, and obviously from an SAP financial and control purposes, you get live information directly out of the SAP system. So the tools really work hand in hand. Right, I'm hoping we're going to get some questions at the end, so I'll flick back to my slides for a second. So I guess the cost of using spreadsheets is the risk that, and if you've ever had this experience, it's a risk that you can put a number to, that you've wasted your time and your money on the wrong projects. Yeah. If in retrospect you wish you hadn't undertaken any project in the past that caused you to lose money and waste your time, then you need a better planning system, right? One that's going to give you more reliable estimates of costs and schedules. So replacing spreadsheets with a digital solution like this, first and foremost, can help you avoid wasting money on poorly conceived and defined projects. And to your responses around productivity, by replacing the reliance on spreadsheets with an integrated flow of this information from idea through to project creation and tracking inside SAP, you're definitely going to save your time of your critical resources, and they can focus on more high value tasks than creating projects in the system or consolidating spreadsheets for reporting purposes. It's contention that with more reliable and more thoughtful project evaluation and scoring models, we might get that ranking right. It's always a big debate at budgeting cycle, what makes it into the budget and what doesn't. And then even once that budgeting cycle debate is done, we end up doing different things anyway the following year. So the whole idea here is to keep the two processes aligned, the planning and prioritization and ultimate approval of an initiative should be done in context. The problem is that most initiatives are valid, they're all good, but it's how do you decide which are the very best ones, yeah? And by just doing one less bad project and one more better project, McKinsey will say that you can achieve up to 4% ROI improvement. Yeah, that means if you've got a capital budget of 50 million, you could be saving a couple of $1 million a year, or improving the bottom line by a couple of $1 million a year, just by handling this process more effectively. Yeah, and that agility is essential. With, I think we've been saying we live in changing times forever, but it feels like it is more challenging than ever before. Whether it's the changes in the interest rates or the supply chains or the technology, planning cycles need to get shorter and shorter, and we need to know what's the next best item in the list. The old paradigm of budgeting projects 12 months before they're going to start is getting more challenging. So having that system where all those things are accessible and available, and the most critical ones can get quickly bubbled up to the top, will help you adapt to really changing circumstances. And risk and compliance with security is always the issue, and it's much easier when you're in a single database than have your data dispersed over multiple spreadsheets. Right, so just to sum up then, Michael, I'm hoping that the attendees give that some thought and perhaps thinking a little bit about each of your environments. If you think about where we're presently, relying on spreadsheets, where do you think you would like to, I guess, go back and say, look, let's see if we can't get out of the spreadsheet-based process and do something better? Would it be first in that area of, innovation and demand management, the wish lists, how we accumulate ideas and demand for new investment for 2025? Would it be in how we evaluate and score and prioritize those and look at the cost of them and how we pick, how we draw the line as to what is in the budget or not? Is it in that financial modeling around the ROI or MPV? Is it in the form, the CapEx request form and approval workflow? Or is it, right at the back end? Do we see value in capturing project setup and, asset definition details and a more user-friendly front-end tool, and then being able to flow that, directly into your project and asset creation processes in SAP without, I guess, the need to, involve Excel as the carrier of that information. Any thoughts from attendees where they see the potential priorities are for replacing spreadsheets in the capital budgeting cycle?
Yeah, okay, Richard, we've got, people are voting. We'll just wait just maybe 10 more seconds, but I appreciate everyone putting in their answers. I think we'll close very shortly, and we'll do it right now. We've got enough. Yep. So I'm not sure if I can share that, but yeah, the results have come out. Yeah, the number one is business case preparation, so 67% business case. Then we've got equal CapEx request and approval, and also portfolio selection and budgeting. Then project and asset creation, SAP, that's 42%. And then last is innovation and demand management, so 25%.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, and I think it does reflect that we do see an opportunity here. I think often this process is managed by finance, and they're not always the first to invest themselves because they realize the scarcity of capital, so they kind of make do with the legacy solutions that they've had. But there really is, I think, a growing need for many organizations to get control over and digitalize this business critical process. I guess the last question, and I'm not sure if I should waste time on it, but let's ask the question anyway, Michael. It's well, one of the things that I've learned is that the CapEx process ownership varies from organization to organization. I always thought it was finance who kind of owned this process, and many organizations it is, but we're currently working with a number of organizations where it's very clearly not owned by finance, but it is actually owned by the engineers, right? If you're in a manufacturing environment and a lot of your capital base is plant and equipment, you'll find that engineering really are the drivers of what gets done. And the finance role is really relegated to, let me report how we're tracking from a budgeting and planning point of view. They're not really the ones making the decisions. The ones making the decisions and doing this planning are actually engineering team, and they are most interested in how we could handle that demand management and estimation and approval more efficiently, because they're all about achieving a technical outcome. And some organizations, IT, responsible for replacing these systems and looking for a better way of doing things. The digital transformation of the business as we go to S/4HANA. What are we going to do with some of our legacy processes? We might have front ends that we're bolted onto ECC. Are we going to maintain those integrations, or are we going to look for something different? Are we going to put it into Fiori, maybe a Fiori and SaaS? Who would be the best person to drive a transformation here? Or is it kind of a combination? Is it a CapEx planning committee that run this process, and you need to convince them, in which case it's harder. I'm just interested to see, if you think about your organization, who would be the sponsor of a digital transformation of capital budgeting.
Yeah, so Richard, we've got 29% CEO board and 29% finance, so they've come out on top, but committee 21%, engineering 14%, and IT 7%, so a bit of a mix there.
Yeah, it's interesting that IT is not necessarily leading the charge here, although perhaps we should be, because maybe the engineers and accountants just don't know what is possible out there. So, all right. Yeah. Well, I realize we've reached the end of our time together, but I didn't leave any time for any questions. But if anyone does have any instant questions, if you want to flick them up, I'll quickly answer those. Otherwise, please reach out, and happy to run you through for the demo or share some of our lessons learned.
Yeah, so no, thanks, Richard. We've we've actually gone a little bit over time, but there were a few questions, and what we'll do, we'll share the questions with you, and if you want to answer those, and we'll share that with the rest of with the audience, with people who registered, and we'll also share the results of the polls as well. So if that's okay, but yeah, like we'll have to finish there, because we've got there's a few questions there, but we'll share those, and so if we can answer those offline. But as Richard said, if anyone has any questions, there the contact details and someone asked about the presentation. Yes, we'll put it up. So, but thank you, Richard. Really good presentation. Obviously, a lot of interesting information. So we'll share those results. And I was just going to say our biggest for announcement. I don't have time to go through all of them, but SORGX, the biggest thing, 19th and 20th of November. Early birds registration have been extended to 30th of September, so end of this week, or to Monday next week. So make sure you just go on the SAEG website. You'll see the upcoming events, and also for that. But thanks, Richard, Amber behind the scenes, and IQX Business Solutions for their support. Thank you everyone for joining us, and hope to see you at a future event, and have a good rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.